There always seems to be a guy on your team that is just a great player and you really like them, however they never seem to get the credit that they deserve. As a Tampa Bay fan, that guy was Adam Humphries. One of the things that makes him so effective is something like this. If you take a look, it's going to be a cover 2 zone that they're going up against, and those are the routes the Tampa Bay's receivers on the top half of the screen will be running. And right there is really the key point of that route, as that's where Adam Humphries is going to end up. So it's basically pretty simple. I mean, you throw it to Adam Humphries before he gets to the linebackers, and it's guaranteed to pick up a few yards. But the chances are that without any broken tackles, it's probably not going to go for too much. But take a look at what Humphries is going to do here. A lot of receivers were just running that direction to try to pick up a few more yards and then get tackled. But he actually sees that there is another Tampa Bay player who's also kind of adjacent with him at that 29-yard line. So what he's going to do is wait for a Tampa Bay player to get in the area and be able to make a block, and then he's just someone's going to run underneath him. It's a simple move, but allows him to pick up another 7 or so yards, so it's definitely a great play by Humphries. And really, that's huge in the NFL. If you have a slot receiver who can turn 3-yard pickups into 7-yard pickups, that makes a huge difference. That's something I think is really important to have in an offense, and it's something that Tennessee has kind of been lacking in these past couple of seasons. Honestly, what I probably like about Humphries more than anything is his footwork. He has tremendous footwork, and this play will be another very good example of that. As of right now, he has a pretty standard one-on-one matchup, and he's simply going to cut straight into the middle of the field, so this seems like it should be a very easy play for him to pick up some yards. After all, there isn't going to be a Panther playing zone in the middle of the field, and so this should mean that Humphries can easily cut in, and that makes a great angle for a quarterback to try to hit him. But one thing I noticed about this play is look at how close Humphries gets to that defensive back. I mean, he's basically right on him. The reason he's cutting now instead of earlier is because he trusts himself that even though he cuts so late, he'll still be able to create enough separation for there to be a completed pass. That's exactly what happens, and it leads to another catch. And really, that's what you're going to see a lot of Humphries do. I mean, he's definitely a possession receiver, and that's very valuable in the league. But those aren't the only ways he can be effective. He can also basically completely change your game plan at times. He's a great screen pass receiver. Like on this one, it's pretty simple. Humphries is simply going to take a step back and be in position to make a catch, and then send 2 receivers on the bottom half of the screen out to block 2 defensive backs in that area. So typically in this play, you expect Adam Humphries to continue running in that direction. However, take a look at what's going on right there. There's a Tampa Bay receiver who's kind of losing his one-on-one matchup, and the Panthers definitely getting over to that bottom half of the screen. So what Humphries is going to do instead is simply just run over top of him. It was a quick adjustment in the middle of the play, but that allowed him to pick up more yards and pick up the first down. He probably still gets a decent gain if he just runs the way the play was designed for, but he probably doesn't get the first down if he does that. That's another thing I really like in a player is awareness. When you're able to look around and realize that you have a different angle that you should try to run to try to make a better situation for your team, that can just be such a big benefit, and Adam Humphries seems to do that a lot. It's also a huge reason why he did a lot of punt returns and kick returns for Tampa Bay, because he can do things like that. Another thing about his footwork is it can really help you in short range situations. Like if there's tight man coverage like there is going to be on this play where it's close man coverage, he can really beat you. Like, take a look at what he's going to do now. He basically just cuts up to the top half of the screen, so that's what the Panther is expecting him to run. Now, sometimes in this situation, you'll want to create contact, and that's what that Panther defensive back is going to do. Basically, where you'd want to have the contact if Humphries is running through the top half of the screen is simply by putting your right hand right there on Adam Humphries' left shoulder pad. This would then help you control Humphries in a lot of ways, as you can kind of tell if he cuts further down the field, you would know where he's going, and you'd be able to stop him. It'd also be tough because if he tried to cut back to the bottom half of the screen, then Humphries would have to turn his left shoulder down. And if there's a hand in the way, you can't really do that because that's the contact that wouldn't allow you to get through. But look at what Humphries is going to do. He basically just does a spin move where he just turns in the opposite direction. This allows him to get easily open and it makes for an easy touchdown. That really is the key to a lot of this is footwork. And Adam Humphries definitely has great footwork, but another thing I really like about him is how quickly he accelerates. Like on this one, it's once again going to be a screen pass where Adam Humphries takes a couple of steps back and then they send 2 receivers out to block. And as of right now, it's looking to be pretty good. I mean, if we take a look at the 2 receivers who are out to block, they're in great position to try to block. And Tampa Bay has sent multiple offensive linemen up to block as well, and they're both in good position to do that. So this play should work out very well for Tampa Bay, but there is one problem. A Giants defensive end noticed all this was happening and ran over and is trying to get into the play. Humphries has just caught the ball right now and I stopped it, so he basically has to go from a full stop to running past a guy who's already running and already has momentum on his side. But that ends up being exactly what he's able to do, as he's able to run past everybody, and because of that quick acceleration, instead of what could have just been a no gain play, he picks up about 40 yards. Another way Humphries can help you is on plays like this. And the way this play works is pretty simple. Basically, if it's zone coverage, then Jameis Winston is going to hit Deshaun Jackson, who's going to be underneath the zone to the top half of the screen. However, if it's man coverage, say he's going to hit Humphries, who is cutting closer to the middle of the field. And since it is going to be man coverage, as that's the Giant who's in charge of covering Adam Humphries, that's where Jameis Winston is going to have to throw the ball too. One thing I really liked about Humphries' route on this one is that look at what's going on right now. He did a very good job of making it unclear in which direction he was going to cut. So he's getting ready right now to cut into the middle of the field, however the defensive back isn't aware of that. The Giant kind of has to stay back to make sure Humphries doesn't go over him and then be wide open in the end zone. And now the second Humphries does cut, he's able to do it so quick that he's relatively wide open. Another interesting thing I saw on this play is that typically on a play like this, you'd want to hit the receiver right there on the chest. But of course, the problem with that now means that a Giant could try to stick their hand into that chest area and knock the ball away. So Humphries is going to do instead, this is very subtle and very small, but he's kind of just going to jump up closer to the quarterback and jump in an area where he makes it tougher for a defensive back to try to get their hand into his chest area. It was really a well-ran route, and it led to another touchdown. Other ways that his quickness can positively affect his team's offense would be a play like this. It's a cover 2 man, and those are the routes that the Tampa Bay receivers are going to be running on the top half of the screen. That's Humphries' route, and it is probably the best way to beat this kind of coverage. I mean, you have 2 receivers running deep, meaning the Giants safety has to make sure he stays back with at least one of them. So even though Humphries is running into that safety zone, it shouldn't be a problem. This basically means that you have a one-on-one matchup, and they trust Adam Humphries can win his one-on-one matchups. And for good reason too. If you take a look, his opposing defensive back who's in charge of covering him has already turned his hips. He's running deep down the field, so by the time Adam Humphries stops, he's able to get wide open. Here's another play that jumped out at me. What Dallas is going to do here is actually something a bit unique. They're going to have a defensive back line up with Adam Humphries, but he's actually going to be rushing the passer. Then from there, it'll be those 2 Dallas Cowboys who are in charge of covering the 2 Tampa Bay Buccaneers receivers on the top half of the screen. And once again, it's the same concept you saw earlier, where if it's man coverage, he should try to hit Evans over the middle of the screen. And if it's zone, he should hit Humphries, who's running to the top half of the screen. Now, Winston actually doesn't throw it to the right guy on this one. He ends up hitting Humphries when he really should have waited and tried to hit Mike Evans. He might have just felt like he didn't have enough time to make a decision and decided to just play it safe and try to hit Humphries. Because whether that's zone or man, it really won't be a disaster. Take a look at what Humphries is going to do once he gets the ball. Typically, you expect him to just continue running in that direction. However, he knows that there is going to be a Cowboy who's also running up to the top half of the screen. So what he's instead going to do is simply just cut back to the middle of the screen. I mean, not a lot of guys have this kind of awareness to not only realize where the defensive backs are on a screen, but realize where the momentum is taking them. And when you compare that with him just being a great athlete, it really can do wonders. I've already shown how Humphries can cut to the inside pretty well, however, he can cut to the outside just as well. And I know it might seem like it's pretty obvious that if you can cut to the inside, you can cut to the outside as well, but it is a more difficult play. Largely because it's just a more difficult angle for a quarterback to try to throw to, so you have to get more open than you typically would on a traditional play. But like on this play, what Humphries is going to do is he's running an out route to the bottom half of the screen, and that's the defensive back who's in charge of covering him. But again, what you're going to see him do is cut at the very last second. This is really just a well-ran route, where he gets to his spot and then cuts down, doesn't worry about anything else, it doesn't give anything away. The defensive back can't try to jump the route or break in any direction, because he doesn't know where Adam Humphries is going. By the time Humphries does cut down, he's able to create enough separation to get over and get the first down. He can also be a great guy to run your plays through, and what I mean by that is the following. Really the one player you're going to want to watch here is that Dallas Cowboy who's right there. He's in charge of covering the flat on the bottom half of the screen, and really the way the flat works is it's anywhere from 5 yards to 15 yards. That's a big gap that he has to cover. And that's just the baseline. Sometimes you'll have to cover even more than that. But take a look at what the play is actually going to be. The plus receiver on the bottom half of the screen is just going to run a deep route. Then Humphries can simply just run a flat route underneath him. This play is going to work out very well, and by the time Adam Humphries makes the catch, he's already 5 yards past the line of scrimmage. So basically, conventional wisdom would tell you that he's going to simply cut down towards the sideline, pick up a few more yards, and create a second down and short situation. So that's what that Cowboys defensive back is expecting, as he's down closer to the bottom half of the screen. So what Humphries is going to do is simply just juke him out and then pick up the first down. I mean, that's an incredibly difficult play to do when you're already running full speed to then have the footwork to cut around someone. I mean, that's nearly impossible, but Adam Humphries can kind of do it routinely. He's a tremendous athlete, and his footwork is just out of this world. He's one of, if not the best slot receivers in the game, and I think Tennessee Titans fans should definitely be very excited about him coming to their team next season. I know some people will probably see 4 years, $36 million and think that that's a little bit of a lot for a slot receiver, and I kind of understand it. I mean, historically, slot receivers don't make that much, so giving a guy solid wide receiver money is a little bit worrisome. But for one thing, it's not a massive contract. I mean, as of right now, he's the 26th highest paid wide receiver in the league, so it's not like he's getting a ton of money. But I also think it's worth mentioning that only $12 million of it is guaranteed, and 10 of that is just a signing bonus. Although there is another clause that if he's still on the roster on the 5th day of the league in 2020, then he has $7 million injury guarantee for that season. So basically what it means is if you decide, you can cut him for no penalty whatsoever after this season. So if it doesn't work out, it's pretty much a no-risk play. And also one more thing that would make me like it if I'm a Titans fan is the fact that the New England Patriots have reportedly offered him more money after he agreed to sign with the Titans. Apparently the only reason he didn't take that deal was because he already had a handshake agreement with the Titans and didn't want to go back on his word. So that should give you some hope that it's a good decision if Bill Belichick was willing to offer him more money, and I think it'll work out well for Tennessee. And it also kind of fits the fact that they're becoming the Patriots by signing a white slot receiver, so I guess they got that going for them.